Good morning, students. So today we'll be continuing our discussion from the ferrous to non-ferrous alloys. So any alloy that doesn't contain iron as a major component in the solid, that is known as the non-ferrous alloys. And so alloy uh, that doesn't basically contain major element. Iron is the major element. They are all non-ferrous alloys. Example: copper, aluminum, magnesium, titanium, niobium, lead, tin, zirconium, zinc. These are various type of uh, alloys in which the iron is not the major component. Now, why do we actually are interested in all sorts of these alloys? Not just because they are there, but because there are limitation in the iron that we have already discussed in the last class, and the limitations are the relatively high density, they weigh a lot, comparatively low electrical conductivity, and inherent susceptibility to corrosion. They corrode a lot, and because of these limitations, there are other materials that are explored, and uh, these are some of those alloy systems that are non-ferrous. So if you look at the classification, so the non-ferrous alloys are various alloys are there, depending upon what is the main component in those alloys. For example, aluminum, copper, magnesium, titanium. There are refractory alloys. Basically, the alloys that are stable at very high temperatures of the order of 3000 degrees or so. Super alloys, the alloys which combine the properties which are otherwise not possible in normal alloys. For example, they are very much resist. They have high resistance to corrosion. They can be stable in the hostile chemical environment, high temperatures, etc. And then we have the noble metals. We know what are noble metals: the platinum, gold, silver, which are non-reactive, used in a variety of decorative application in jewelry, ornamental applications. Then nickel alloys, lead, tin, zinc, zirconium, all these alloys gets their name because of their the base metal that is used in those. So that is copper and its alloys. So any element, if it is unalloyed in a pure form, it will be soft. Is a fundamental thing that to be known, that the hardness, the mechanical strength in any alloy that comes because of the defects in terms of impurity, in terms of the precipitates, in terms of the other various 1, 2, or 3 dimensional defects that are present in the alloy. So similarly, the copper is, when it is unalloyed or it is in the pure form, it is kind of soft metal. It's a soft, as well as we know it's a quite the ductility is very high. Um, so ductility is so high that it is difficult to machine. I mean, if you want to make some sort of pieces like what we have shown on the right, it's difficult to get all sorts of articles from copper if it is pure. So what is the important here is to have the impurities, to have the desired to get the desired properties. There are various type of the doping that is added into. So this is the copper is highly resistant to corrosion in diverse environments, including ambient atmosphere, seawater. Seawater is a very hostile kind of environment for metals, because of the salt and other solvents, solutes present in the seawater, and some of the industrial chemicals. So copper is ideal in such circumstances. Mechanical and corrosion resistance properties of copper may be improved by alloying. we have seen is the copper does corrode. It forms copper oxides of copper, and that can be prevented by adding copper with various elements, for example zinc, or other elements. So the copper, because it corrodes, it is not a noble metal, but what we have seen is the alloys of copper, for example copper which is FCC in alpha phase, if it has a solubility limit of about 35%, for zinc, which is beta phase. So if the zinc is added into copper less than say 35 weight percent, what we end up is having is a BC is a beta dash phase, and so this beta dash phase is harder and stronger than the parent pure alpha phase. So copper, yeah. So we can see there is a this is atomic percent. So if we can look at, say, weight percent of zinc. Yeah. So this is the beta dash phase, which is stronger and harder. Initially the solubility is 35%, and if no, zinc more than that is added into close to 50%. So what we get at the lower temperatures, so temperature lower than say close to 500 degrees centigrade, that the beta dash phase is stable, and this beta dash phase here is much stronger than alpha phase, the initial FCC phase, in which 35%, approximately 35 to close to 40% weight percent solubility of. So these are known as the brasses, and brass is stronger than the original parent element copper. So this phase, this brass copper zinc beta dash phase, is used in multiple applications, including but not limited to costumes, jewelry, cottages, casting, automotive radiators. These are the radiators from the Ford company. Musical instrument, brass band, and electronic packaging, coins, etc. These are made from the brasses, which essentially contain zinc as the alloying element. What we see onto the right is the emblem, national emblem of India, and then the jewelry articles. This is the cartridge of the bullets. So these are all made up of the copper. Then there are bronze. Bronze is basically what we have seen. There's so much, effort need to be put on in order to get these kind of medals. Very important. So gold, then the silver, and then bronze. Gold as a pure metal. Definitely gold is also added or doped or uh, alloyed with other elements in order to increase the property, but the majority of the component in still the alloy is still gold. So it's a gold medal. It used to be. Nowadays it is just the like a coating of gold on top of the silver medal. So then the silver medal and then the bronze. So the first two are say represents the noble metal, and in those days when this actually started, copper was one of uh, the metal, but because it corrodes, it was alloyed with several other elements in order to get the bronze. So tin, aluminum, silicon, and nickel, etc. So this combination of the elements along with the copper was given as a metal, and this is corrosion resistance, has a good amount of corrosion resistance, and therefore along with the noble metal which are inherently corrosion resistant is given as a metal to the athletes. So the hindsight, the idea is copper is alloyed with different element in order to achieve properties. Uh, Copper is favored because it has high electrical conductivity. If you look at the if you look at look at the limitations of the iron, one of the problem is the low electrical conductivity. So what we have seen in the electrical wires, we don't have uh, iron, but we have other than that in many wires are used, and that is when it is alloyed with such elements. So because of this alloying, these brasses and these bronzes are stronger, and but this bronze is stronger than brass, and yet they are still have the high degree of corrosion resistance. So along with the mechanical strength, corrosion resistance is the characteristic that is obtained by alloying the copper with all these elements. And these are used when in addition to corrosion resistance, good tensile strength, these mechanical properties are required. So in addition to bronze, there are various other alloys of copper. When these are alloyed with, for example, all such elements, various type of the alloys that are used, it is represented as a tree here. So right from the binary to ternary, quaternary, multi elemental, these alloys are used, and they have various applications. These in the transportation, approximately 11% is used, and industrial machinery equipment 15%, and electronic circuitry 26%, and then building and construction 37%. So if you look at the various the mechanical property distribution of the copper alloys, so for example, there are raw alloys. So what are raw alloys? They are the uh, so these the alloy which are amenable to mechanical deformation, so they can withstand the mechanical deformation of raw alloys. Uh, if there's an electrolytic tough pitch, this is the alloy, and it basically has comparatively low yield strength, and which is approximately 70. Beryllium copper has a good amount of yield strength, 1205 megapascal, and cartridge brass. So this is used in automotive radiator cores, ammunition components, lamp fixtures, flashlights, cells, kick plates, etc. Whereas the beryllium copper in springs, whatever spring we see in various applications, bellows, firing pins, bushings, valves, diaphragms, etc. It's a beryllium copper. Whereas in electrical wire that we see, copper wire, we know it's quite soft in nature. If you twist it multiple times, you can break it. So because yield strength is less, so electrical wires, rivets, screening, gaskets, the pans, nails, roofing, etc. So all these are in these all such applications, electrolytic tough pitch copper is used, whereas phosphor bronze 5% A has the mechanical strength which is not as good as the beryllium copper, but it is still higher than cartridge brass as well as the electrolytic tough pitch, approximately 130 megapascal to 515 megapascal. This 515 megapascal is in the cold work, and we have already seen what is cold working. Cold working, like when a blacksmith hits the the iron in the cold state, iron or any other alloy. So that is the cold working, and it's in the hot condition. Alloy has approximately 4 times the yield strength as the normal alloy. So such alloys are used in bellows, clutch discs, diaphragms, fuse clips, springs, welding rods, etc. And then if the copper is alloyed with the 30% nickel, so uh, this is again annealed and cold work. So annealed and cold work, this tensile strength, um, the in case of this 30% nickel, the yield strength is a bit uh, lower than the phosphor branch, this one, uh, and this is used in heat exchanger components, salt water. There are various other kind of alloys like tin, phosphorus, nickel that we just saw, and these are the cast alloys in which as cast. What is casting? Let me show you. Sorry, metal casting. So this is what is the known as casting. You can see there's a molten metal that is poured into the predefined structure. Because of the liquid state, the metal basically occupies or gets into the shape that is there of the cast. So otherwise it is difficult to cast that metal into the complex shapes when it is in a solid state. So the liquid is poured, and the various complex shape can be achieved quite easily, but it's a energy intensive process. For example, these gears are made up from the molten metal. This molten metal is poured into in liquid state into the cast, so it basically cools down, and what we achieve at last is something, the gears like this. So this is cast alloy. They have the mechanical strength, for example, the tensile strength of the order of as high as 586 megapascal. This is when the the copper is alloyed with 4% iron and 11% aluminum. Okay, so this is used in bearing, gears, worms, bushings, wall sheets, guards, picking hooks, etc. And similarly, these are as cast alloys when alloyed with zinc, lead and tin, they can have the tensile strength up to 234 megapascal, and the tensile strength a bit lower, 83 megapascal. And this is used in furniture, hardware, radiator fitting, light fixture, battery lamps, etc. So there are various possibilities in the copper alloy. So next class of alloys is aluminum and its alloys. We know the aluminum alloys are basically very light in weight. All the wirings in the electrical poles uh, all around us is basically aluminum alloys. This is actually very low, very light. Light. If you look at the iron, steel, it is almost 8 gram per centimeter cube. If we take 1 centimeter cube piece, it will weigh approximately 8 grams. Okay, so 8 grams in case of steel. But if we take same piece of alloy, then it will just weigh 2.37 grams, approximately like one third of the weight. So with one third weight reduction, there's a lot of application where basically in transportation, with the good electrical with high electrical conductivity and high thermal conductivity, aluminum is preferred as compared to iron. Okay, but it is not as strong as the iron. So the advantage in this case is high electrical thermal conductivity and resistance to corrosion in common environments, including the ambient atmosphere. So it doesn't corrode. Basically, what happens? Aluminium forms a very thin layer on alumina, Al2O, Al2O3, whereas iron and the propagation of oxygen into the inner bulk is prevented, and therefore there's a oxidation resistance, and which is corrosion resistance. So aluminum doesn't corrode, having high electrical thermal conductivity is preferred in many applications over the steel. So these alloys are easily formed by virtue of their high ductility because they are soft in the soft state, pure state. So their high ductility can be, can be. We have seen all aluminum foils, right? So aluminum foils. So because we are because there's a high ductility of aluminum. These So because of this high ductility, they can be shaped into very thin foil sheets, which are directly of pure material when they roll. When aluminum can be alloyed with copper, magnesium, silicon, manganese, zinc, etc., and allowing and deformation at room temperature decreases the corrosion resistance, and it's a problem is it's a comparatively low melting temperature, which is 660 degrees centigrade, and so this is one of the limitation, and that limits the high temperature to which the aluminum can be used, up to which the aluminum can be used. So this restrict the maximum temperature which can be used. If we alloy the aluminum with other low density metals, for example magnesium and titanium, you will see the alloys and application of magnesium titanium in the next few slides. With other low density metals, this has been used in engineering material, reduce the in transportation for the reduction of the fuel consumption, etc. So one of the lightweight metal is alloyed with the, suppose, aluminum, zinc, aluminum, magnesium, aluminum, titanium. So this kind of alloys have been proven to be very useful in many applications, specifically in transportation. Might have you heard about the titanium alloys? Very they are being used in the aircrafts, in multiple parts of the aircraft, because it's a high strength, low density, and so on. So that reduces the fuel consumption. Specifically, these aluminum lithium alloys have been used in aircraft and aerospace industries with very low densities of the even lower than the aluminum. So because lithium is low density, so 2.5 to 2.6 gram per centimeter cube, and a good specific moduli or a specific strength, and excellent fatigue and low temperature toughness properties. Because of these aluminum lithium alloys have been also very useful. Allowing the aluminum with, say, copper, manganese, zinc, or chromium, manganese, or copper, magnesium, zinc, and magnesium, silicon, copper, chromium, etc. The mechanical properties can be improved from say the tensile properties from 19 megapascal. So if you look at the mechanical properties of the copper and alloy, the copper in the rod stage is 220. The lowest one is in case of aluminum, because it's again compared to copper, aluminum is soft in the rod state. It's just 90. So which is almost 50% or less than 50%. The tensile strength is less than 50% that of the tensile strength, lowest tensile strength for the copper, and the yield strength 35 megapascal. And there are various applications from chemical handling, storage equipments, the heat exchangers because of the high thermal conductivity, light reflectors, etc. Whereas the 3003 having the copper, manganese, and zinc, slightly higher mechanical properties. This ductility is important. Always there is a trade-off between ductility and strength. If you want strength, you need to sacrifice ductility. Because there are the basic mechanism from which the ductility and mechanical strength comes. It's if one is decreased, other will increase, and vice versa. So the application of this alloy is 3003, cooking utensils, pressure vessels, piping, etc. Whereas in the strain hardened, these all are annealed. That means heated at the temperature where the movement of the atoms in the solid is good, and strain hardened, which is the the solid is under strain, has been pressed. It is similar to cold working, resulting in the lot of strain in the lattice. So it has even lower ductility. When you have strain hardened, you are increasing, you have almost doubled the tensile strength, but at the same time the ductility has been reduced. Okay, so this kind of alloys 5052 in aircraft fuel and oil lines, fuel tanks, appliances, etc. If these are non-heat treatable alloys, but if raw alloys, the heat treatable alloys, they have the high mechanical properties as compared to the non-heat treatable, and in these kind of alloys, copper, magnesium, manganese, and other these elements are used. So the mechanical strength 470 240 megapascal to with high strength and high ductility. So with the heat treatable alloys, there is enhanced mechanical strength as well as high ductility is achieved, and these kind of alloys are used in aircraft structures, wheel screw machines, truck portions, etc. Now if you look at the magnesium alloy, which is another lightweight light metal, magnesium is almost a second. 2% of the earth crust is magnesium and is eighth most abundant element. So problem is magnesium is it is kind of when it comes in contact with oxygen, it burns, spontaneously burns. So it's hazardous in that sense. But if it is used in the inert environment, uh, so the properties of magnesium can be used nowadays. As the focus is shifting from the hydrocarbons to the hydrogen-based economy or electric vehicles, specifically towards the hydrogen-based economy, the magnesium hydrides. Now, the storing hydrogen is a problem because it is a highly combustible gas. So it reduces everything. It's a reducing gas as well. So what happens if storing the gas is a problem? So one of the approach that it has been suggested is convert the metal into metal hydrides, because and then extract hydrogen from the metals, because this is a reversible reaction when the temperature of the metal is increased. So in order to get that, magnesium is one of the metals that has come out as a one major candidate in such scenarios. So although magnesium is found in 60 kind of minerals, only dolomite, magnesite, bucite, carnallite, and olivine are commercially important. There are some of the ores of the magnesium from which magnesium is extracted out of nearly 60 minerals. Magnesium and other magnesium compounds are also produced from seawater, well, lake brines, etc. So this is how the magnesium looks like, a shiny silvery metal, but it is very light, and if it is exposed to a bit high temperature and oxygen, it burns, making magnesium oxide, MgO, which is a ceramic. So this is the lightest, one of the cheapest structural metals. Specific weight is weight and this is only 2/3 of the aluminum. So we just saw 2.7 grams per meter cube per centimeter cube is for is the specific weight for aluminum. So 2/3 of that, right? So if we take for magnesium, it will be 1.8 grams per centimeter cube. That's for aluminum, and even 1/3 for the titanium. So magnesium is one of the lightest metal. Okay, so because of this, this metal is of high importance. It's having better heat dissipation and heat transfer due to high thermal conductivity, which is of the order of 51 watt per um, uh, per minute per Kelvin, and it is having high ability to shield electromagnetic interruption. You know, there's a electromagnetic radiation and it can absorb all sorts of radiation. So it shows high excellent ability for the electromagnetic shielding. And this is the density 1.8 or 1.75 per meter cube in combination with a relatively high strength. High strength is 228 to 290 megapascal. So if we compare this, say for aluminum, so for aluminum is 90 megapascal. Here it is for magnesium is 228 to 290 megapascal. So it is stronger than aluminum and it is lighter than aluminum. Only thing is it's actually easily it corrodes easily when exposed to atmosphere. Only problem is it corrodes, it not doesn't corrode, rather it explodes, it burns when comes in contact with oxygen. So that is one of the problem. So the magnesium, having the high strength to weight ratio, make magnesium a durable material in automotive and aerospace parts. The use of magnesium based alloys increased in say 19s because of the high strength basically high strength magnesium matrix composite. So in the magnesium, in order to improve its mechanical strength, corrosion resistance, other elements are added into it to form a composite. We'll see what exactly is a composite. So as lightweight advanced structural material for the automotive and aerospace application. On the right, what we see the alloy wheels. So these alloy wheels, these are one of the application of the magnesium alloys. This could be one of the a possible replacement for the aluminum, plastic as the lightweight materials, and of course steel as far as the strength is concerned in very selected kind of applications because of their high ductility, greater toughness, and better castability. This is the consumption of the or production of the magnesium in 2018 worldwide. So this is like almost 7 million tons magnesium was produced. Speaks about the kind of consumption magnesium have. So if you look at a normal car, there are various parts that are made up of magnesium. For example, there are steering hanger beam, there's an intake a cylinder head cover, then intake manifold in the engine, and transmission case. Not in all sorts of cars, but in high-end cars, this is what is being used nowadays. Then a seat frame, indoor frame, a tag line, steering wheel, and camera frame, etc. There are various applications where magnesium and its alloys are used. So so if the magnesium is alloyed with say aluminum, zinc, and manganese, and some of the rare earth element to improve its mechanical and corrosion resistance properties. So as we have seen, this is used in aircraft missile applications and other all sorts of applications. It has the ability to replace the plastic. Plastic is used because of the lightweight and the ductility and strength. Magnesium can replace this plastic in many engineering applications, or can replace the engineering plastic that have comparable densities, because magnesium materials are stiffer, more recyclable, and less costly to produce. Only problem is that we need to remember in case of magnesium is because they corrode, they burn when come in contact with the oxygen. So there are these various applications. At the the mechanical property. So mechanical property is a 262, which was 90 in case of aluminum. So it is almost 2.5 times stronger than aluminum. Okay, and one third, the two-third, the density compared to aluminum. So it's a win-win situation. Only thing, when the corrosion resistance can be imparted into that, so that can be done by alloying magnesium with aluminum, zinc, magnesium to get such properties. And this magnesium alloy is generally used in structures and tubing, cathodic protection, and then if it is alloyed with thorium and zirconium and then partially stain hardened, then its yield strength as well as the tensile strength can be achieved to 55 megapascal. The important thing here is by doping the magnesium with thorium and zirconium elements, high strength can be achieved up to 315 degrees centigrade. So this this dopant enhance the high temperature strength to 315 degrees. So the applications where the temperature less than this are there in the process, there these thorium and zirconium based magnesium alloy can be used. And the mechanical strength of high mechanical strength in case of the order of 350 megapascal is achieved in case when the magnesium is doped with zinc and zirconium in the given weight fractions, and they are used in forging of the maximum strength parts of the aircraft. This is about the raw alloys. And if you look at the cast alloys, their mechanical strength is not as good as the raw alloys, and their yield strength is also smaller with the lower ductility. And their applications range from die casting part of automobiles to wheels and the die casting because of the distance. The next candidate is the titanium alloys. Titanium alloys, because of the pure metals, it's a relatively low density. Now if you compare the density with the magnesium 1.8, aluminum 2.7, it's a density, it's like almost 2 times heavier than aluminum. But what is the speciality of titanium is its high melting point of the order of 1668 degrees centigrade, whereas both aluminum and magnesium they cannot withstand to such high temperatures. So this high temperature coupled with low density titanium is used in aircraft industry extensively. Okay, and this high temperature strength and it has a high tensile strength at room temperature, which is 1400 megapascal. Here we are dealing with the 200, 300, 400 and all, and here comes the titanium. Though it is 2 times heavy, but it's a high temperature stability, and the room temperature tensile strength is 1400 megapascal. Okay, so it's a way different class of a material, and therefore it is it has a variety of application as advanced material. So the titanium, when it's unalloyed, that is commercially pure, titanium has a hexagonal structure, and it is denoted as alpha phase at room temperature. But when it is heated to 833 degrees centigrade, this transforms to BCC or beta phase. Alpha and beta are just notations. As a physicist, we are more familiar with the crystal structure. Metallurgists generally are familiar with the alpha and beta. So it's a transformation from HCP to BCC phase at 883. This transformation temperature strongly influences the presence. The transformation temperature is strongly influenced by the presence of the alloying element. For example, vanadium, niobium, molybdenum decreases the alpha to beta transformation temperature and promote the formation of beta phase, which may exist at room temperature in addition to some of the composition of it coexist. So it is 883 for the pure titanium from HCP to BCC transformation, but when you alloy with vanadium, niobium, molybdenum, this beta phase can be stabilized even at the room temperature. Okay, so uh, room temperature, on the basis of this, the titanium alloys fall into 4 different classifications: alpha, beta, alpha plus beta, and near alpha. These are 4 different classes: alpha, HCP, beta, BCC, alpha plus beta, both are present, and near alpha, which is in a kind of a boundary range. So they are virtually immune to corrosion in air, marine, that means in seawater, and in environments. Uh, so titanium is stable to high temperature. It is uh, it has a good room temperature tensile strength. It is immune to corrosion, which was not there in case of magnesium. Okay, so this is titanium has found various applications in areas. It is one of the other important characteristics of titanium is it is biocompatible. That means it doesn't produce any byproduct which is harmful for human health when this human body is exposed to this metal for a longer period of time. So that is the biocompatibility. And titanium, when alloyed with aluminum and tin, are preferred for high temperature applications. Beta, that means the BCC alloy of titanium, contains sufficient amount of beta stabilizers. Stabilizer the element vanadium, niobium, molybdenum, etc., which stabilizes the transformation temperature to close to room temperature, such that upon cooling sufficiently rapid rates, beta can be retained at room temperature. So alpha to beta material alloys stabilizes both constituent phases, and but okay, there are all sorts of advantages, but what is the limitation? The limitation of titanium is chemical reactivity with other material at elevated temperature. At high temperature, it reacts with the other materials, and this property has necessitated the development of non-conventional refining, melting, casting techniques. Consequently, titanium alloys are quite expensive. Okay, so because it reacts with the other elements at high temperature, and in order to extract it, you need to expose this material to high temperature beyond, say, melting point. So in order to prevent, or you know tailor the casting, melting, and refining techniques tailor only for titanium, this reactivity actually increases the cost of titanium, and that's why titanium and other uh, wherever the titanium is used, that application basically becomes very expensive. So the titanium is used in many applications, including but not limited to dental implants, surgical usage, because of this biocompatibility of titanium. So metal ceramic restorations, dental implants. Many people use the titanium as an implant in addition to gold, silver, etc. Then partial dental framework. This is the biocompatible application. But there are various high advanced technology applications in the jet engine, shrouds, cases, airframe, skins, and then gas turbine, then gas turbine components, high strength prosthetic implants, etc. So these kind of applications are used in, when the titanium is alloyed with uh, it's alloyed with tin, aluminum, molybdenum, vanadium, etc. And the mechanical strength of the order of, say, 1223 and as low as 240 megapascal can be achieved. And you can see when the tensile strength is low, ductility is high, and when the tensile strength is increasing, ductility will come down. So again, the trade-off between the mechanical strength and the ductility in various applications. And then all this depends upon what is the alloying element. You can see there's a aluminum all in the alpha plus beta, near alpha applications. This alpha is there, and then in case of beta, vanadium iron. So there are various alloying elements in the various proportions in order to get the various properties of the titanium alloy. Okay, so we have superalloys and other applications that we'll see in the next class. And this is it for today. If you have any questions, any doubts, any comments, I'll be happy to take your questions.